Hello everybody, my name is Heidi and welcome to lesson 1 of Shark School. So this talk is going to be all about what actually is a shark and what makes it special. Throughout this talk, I'm going to use the word shark, but I'm actually talking about a group of animals called sharks, skates and rays. And they have a few things in common that make them very closely related and make them different to other types of fish, such as bony fish. So these images here are of types of sharks that you might already recognize. There's the small spotted cat shark. This guy spends his time on the sea floor and generally forages at night. Below that is a porbeagle. That probably looks familiar to you because it looks very similar to a great white shark. And that's because they're actually cousins. They come from the same family of sharks. And then on the bottom picture there is the gentle giant, the basking shark. This shark is the second largest in the whole world, and we're lucky enough that it actually spends time in our local waters in the summer months, when our water's a little bit warmer. If you don't recognize the large picture, this is a flapper skate. So skates and rays are these flat-bodied sharks that have similar characteristics to sharks, and that's why they're closely related. So it's all of these animals that we're talking about today. And the specific characteristics that I'm going to talk about are what makes them different to bony fish. So these images that I've added here of herring, mackerel, bluefin tuna, and tropical fish species like clownfish are all what we call bony fish. And that will make more sense once we start talking about the skeletons. So the first thing that makes shark, skates, and rays special is their skeleton. Their entire skeleton is made out of cartilage. So if you take your finger and put it on the tip of your nose and wiggle that around, you can see just how flexible and bendy that material is. So an entire skeleton of a shark is made up of that flexible material. And that allows them to be really agile and they can make quick turns when they're in the water. Cartilage is also a much lighter material than bone, which helps them stay buoyant in the water. A human skeleton is made up of bone and it's much more rigid. So if you try to bend a point in your arm between your wrist and your elbow, you can see that that's not going to bend, and that's because bone is very rigid. And other advantages to having a cartilage skeleton are the fact that it's a very durable material and it heals quickly. You'll see in the activity pack for Shark School that's available to download off the Ulster Wildlife Facebook page that one of the activities is the differences and commonalities between bony fish and shark, skates and rays. And this is a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is very simple. You just add the characteristics in the circle that relate to whatever that circle has been attributed to. So for example, we can now add in cartilage skeleton into the circle with shark, skates and rays. And we can add bony skeleton under bony fish. As I go through and talk about more characteristics, you can keep adding them into your Venn diagram, and don't forget to add the ones that bony fish and sharks have in common into the middle of the Venn diagram where the circles overlap. Okay, so our second characteristic that makes sharks really special is their skin. So this picture is an extremely magnified photograph of shark skin, and you can see it looks like tiny little armored plates. And these are called dermal denticles, and they're actually modified teeth. And these dermal denticles cover the entire body of sharks. It's a very tough type of skin, so it provides the shark with a lot of protection, and that's useful against predators. It's also useful in mating. The shape of each dermal denticle is particular in that it allows for increased hydrodynamic swimming, helping it swim efficiently, fast, and also very quietly. This is different to the skin of bony fish, which is generally covered in scales, which don't provide as much protection.
Have you ever wondered why sharks don't sink? Well, most fish, they have a swim bladder. This is an internal organ that acts like a balloon, So when it expands and fills with air, the fish rises in the water column. And when it contracts and lets air out, the fish sinks. But shark skates and rays, they don't have a swim bladder. They've adapted other ways of being able to stay buoyant in the water column. One of the adaptations that sharks have to stay buoyant is having large pectoral fins. Pectoral fins are the fins on the side of the shark. And these act similar to airplane wings. So when the fish is swimming, the water that flows underneath the pectoral fins gives the shark lift. And that's how they can stay buoyant when they're swimming in open ocean. Other sharks and skates have adapted to spend time on the sea floor, so they don't need to stay buoyant. Like this guy here, which is a skate, they're what we call bottom dwellers because it spends its time foraging and resting on the sea floor. Another way that sharks have adapted to stay buoyant in the water is by having a large oily liver. The liver of a shark can actually take up 25% of its entire body weight. That's a lot, especially if you compare it to ours. Our liver only takes up 5% of our body weight. And the fact that their large liver is very oily is what makes them stay buoyant in the water. I'll demonstrate that now. So in this bowl, I've just filled it with water. And I've got two bottles here. One is filled with water, which is representing our shark that doesn't have an oily liver. The second bottle is filled with oil, and this is to represent the shark that has the large oily liver. Now both these bottles have the same volume, so there's 500 millilitres of liquid in both to make this a fair test. And I'm going to place them into the water and see if one of them floats or if one of them sinks. So let's put the water bottle in first. You can see that that bottle immediately sank to the bottom of the bowl. Let's see what happens with the oily bottle. The bottle that was filled with oil is floating at the surface, and that's because oil is less dense than water, so it stays afloat. There's an advantage to sharks having these other adaptations to staying buoyant in the water and not having a swim bladder. It means that they are able to make fast turns and move quickly up and down the water column without having to think about the air in their swim bladder expanding too much and potentially exploding. This is an advantage that makes them really good predators.
So in that video, we saw how a shark's large oily liver is one of the ways that helps them to stay buoyant. And the basking shark has one of the largest livers of all sharks. It also mentioned how having large pectoral fins help give the shark lift, similar to how an airplane wing works when it's making long migrations in open ocean. And finally, we talked about how some sharks actually don't need to stay buoyant because they live on the sea floor most of the time and don't need to be in the mid-water column. It's a common myth about sharks that they can smell blood from miles away. But is that really true? Well, sharks do have nares or nasal cavities, which are basically nostrils, and 1/3 of their brain is dedicated to smell because it's one of the senses that they use quite often. And they are good at detecting smells and odors in the water. In fact, they're remarkable at detecting very small concentrations of odors that would indicate a prey species. And also their smell is directional, meaning that they can tell what direction the odor is coming from. All of this is very useful whenever they're hunting for prey. However, this sense of smell is no better than other types of fish, like the other regular bony fish. So really, the myth about sharks being able to smell blood has just been perpetuated by movies. Sight is a sense that sharks often use, but people don't really think about. But if you look at a shark's head, they've got an eye on each side, which gives them a really wide field of vision to be able to see quite far around them. And some sharks have evolved to be able to see very well in low light conditions. In fact, some of them have a layer of reflective cells at the back of the eye called the tapetum lucidum, and this allows them to be able to see in very low light conditions, similar to how a cat's eye works. Some sharks also have eyelids. Regular bony fish don't have any eyelids, but many sharks will have two. However, these eyelids don't fully close. A special group of sharks have a third eyelid called a nictitating membrane, which you can see in the smaller picture here. This is a protective third eyelid that comes over to protect the eyes just as the shark is going in to attack its prey. So if all living organisms need oxygen to survive and they breathe oxygen just like us, how do sharks breathe if they live underwater?
Just like us, sharks breathe oxygen, but they are able to filter out the dissolved oxygen from the water using their specialised respiratory organs called gills. Most sharks have 5 gills on each side of their body. Some sharks, though, have 6 or even up to 7 gills. As they're swimming, water passes in through their mouth and is pushed over the gills, and this is when they can filter out the dissolved oxygen, and any excess water is then pushed outside the body. I can demonstrate that using just coffee and a coffee filter. So the first thing I'm going to do is place this coffee filter over the top of an empty jar. And then just going to secure that with an elastic band. I have some water already in this jug, and I'm going to add some coffee granules. And then I'll stir that around so that the coffee dissolves into the water. So now if I pour this water carefully over the coffee filter, you can see already that the water is passing through the filter and dropping into the bottom of this jar. But if you look at the top of the jar, you can see the coffee granules are actually being captured by the coffee filter, similar to how the gills capture the oxygen molecules and then pass that into the blood and around the body.
So in that wee video, we saw how the gills are filtering out oxygen from the water. And the gills act similar to how our lungs work and allow the shark to breathe. Some sharks are continuously swimming so that water is always passing over the gills, and if they stopped swimming, they wouldn't be able to breathe anymore. This is called ram ventilation. Other sharks that do spend their time in one place and not constantly swimming are able to actively pump water through their gills, and that's called buccal pumping. And finally, some skates and sharks have a specialized secondary way of breathing using the spiracle, which is the hole behind the eye that also draws water in and passes it to the gills. One of the coolest things about sharks is actually that they have a sixth sense that we don't have. If you look at this picture, you can see lots of tiny black freckles, and they're jelly-filled pores called the ampullae of Lorenzini. Each of these jelly-filled pores is an electroreceptor, and it detects electrical signals in the water. Electrical signals can come from the electromagnetic field that surrounds the Earth, and they use this to migrate and never get lost even when they're crossing open ocean. And electrical signals can also come from the heartbeats of fish. In this way, they're able to detect prey. Bony fish don't have this sixth sense called the ampullae of Lorenzini. However, they do have something in common with sharks in that they have a lateral line. This is a series of small pores along the length of the body, which you can see pointed out in this picture here. This series of pores detects changes in water pressure and movement, meaning that they know whenever something in the water has moved. It's almost like the sense of touch, but at a distance. If we go back now to our Venn diagram, you should have filled in quite a few characteristics about sharks and bony fish, but let's run through the answers. We talked about how their skin is different. Sharks have those specialized dermal denticles that act as tiny armored plates. Bony fish have scales. Sharks have eyelids, sometimes even a third protective eyelid. Bony fish don't have any eyelids. How sharks stay buoyant in the water is to do with their oily livers, whereas bony fish use an internal organ called a swim bladder. The ampullae of Lorenzini is the special sixth sense that sharks have, but both groups of fish have a lateral line in common to detect water pressure changes. Both sharks and bony fish have gills, that is how they breathe. However, some sharks and skates have this secondary way of breathing by using a spiracle. And lastly, both sharks and bony fish have a remarkable sense of smell. So that is the end of this talk, and hopefully you've learned a lot about sharks and you now think they're one of the coolest species in our oceans. The next lesson is going to be all about our local sharks. So what species actually live in our waters in Northern Ireland? Try and guess which of these species lives in Northern Ireland, and then you can check your answers as we go through the next talk. So thanks for swimming by lesson 1 of Shark School, and don't forget to come back for lesson 2 on the Ulster Wildlife Facebook page. See you soon.